Hey everyone, today we are looking at the Sandrin TCK 2.0. Sandrin sent this knife to me. They obviously appreciated my test that I did a year or so ago where their previous TCK got the highest of all the edge retention results. That was not a partnership in any sense. A viewer sent me the knife to test. Sandrin did like it and they sent me a couple of TCKs after that, which I then just gave away. This is the first one they've sent me that I've actually used in a review, so naturally I will review it. I will be as honest as I can about it. I don't have any personal connection or affiliation with Sandrin. I do admire their work because this is like mad scientist sort of stuff, which I always appreciate. But after I've done the review, we're going to run this knife through a bunch of materials and see at what point it maybe chips out rather than wears out, because we've seen how much wear it needs to take on twisted sisal rope. Then we're going to put it up against materials that may indent or roll or chip the edge of any knife. So we're going to see how this stuff does against those. Does the hardness let it conquer most things, or is it brittle like a lot of sort of harder or non-steel substances can sometimes be? That will be revealed after the review, so let's get into it. Alrighty, so this is it. Polyhedral tungsten carbide blade in a very, very Warncliffe style shape, with a stainless steel handle, all stainless steel here, red back spring, pocket clip, slip joint with these, they call them the Fibonacci sequence dots as your purchase to get the slip open. That's it. Very, very simple, basic presentation of what is the star of the show, this TC material. So the TC material, let's get this out of the way first. It is a proprietary thing that Sandrin have figured out. The fellow who works there is in Italy, and he's kind of the mad scientist behind it all. He's experimented with a few different ways of adapting tungsten carbide to a proper knife blade, not just like a mini utility blade. He's put it on a cobalt matrix, I believe. There's various things you can sort of inset the tungsten carbides into. Zinc, nickel, I believe. I think cobalt is the one that gets you the optimum ductility. So unlike some super hard type blades, this one has a bit of flex in it. It's got a bit of durability to it. It's got a bit of impact resistance to it. So fairly cool and fairly rare to have something like this. So very, that's what we're going for. That's the whole idea behind this knife. So, edge retention wise, yes, as I've already covered, it's going to be amazing. Blade wise, it's going to be a bit unusual. So you're looking at this blade here. It's a very, very thin, straight, non-tapered sheet of tungsten carbide. Wow, it is just like a scalpel that I just brushed my thumb against it and yikes. And this after a month of use, so I guess that's something. But yeah, it's like a sort of single sheet that then has its sort of scalloped hollow edge here and then a micro bevel along here. So 20 degrees per side on the scalloped edge, 20 degrees per side on the micro bevel, I believe. So pretty standard for, average blade geometry is what you're going to get mostly. Obviously though, it's super thin. So being that thin, it's going to have a bit more PSI behind each push cut. And it's going to be, slightly finer, more kind of, like I didn't even feel that really, and it's just drawn blood. So scalpel style, I would say, is the descriptor of the day. Looking at the tip, you'll see there is not really a tip. I would say that is how they have to cut this material. They're imagining using diamond Tormex style wheels or something similar to that, and it just kind of terminates, and it's not sharp on the end. I mean, it's not, I wouldn't want that press into my perineum, but it's bloody, not a cutting tip. So there you go. That's the first analogy that came into my mind. What is wrong with me? So yeah, it's going to be definitely like a letter opener style cardboard cutting, maybe a bit of fruit cutting, but then you're looking at it, it's also a completely straight edge as well. So very craft knife-ish. Yeah, you can see the applications for it. They're all very light duty. So there you go. In terms of how tungsten carbide performs as a knife steel in other ways, well, it's relatively stain resistant. I have the chef's knife that also Sandrin make, and it's in the same stuff, and that did tarnish a little bit when I left it in the dishwasher overnight to let some water pool up on it. It's a different kind of tarnishing. It's still like a patina, but it's not like a rust tarnishing. It kind of discolors, almost like a chemical discoloration or something. Very, very unusual, very different. I've looked and done a whole bunch of research. It all seems food safe and all that good stuff. I don't think there's any issues with that. It's just different. I guess that's the way to think of it. So the blade is going to be extremely slicey, very sort of, very fine-edged. It's going to last for the longest time without really seeking out an excellent custom maker to make you a knife. It's going to last the longest that you're probably going to have. It's going to be very difficult to sharpen. So that's another thing. I have not really had any luck in doing a meaningful sharpening job on a Sandrin in the past. Not that I have really needed to. Even when I did my 1500 cut test, it was still, I would call, a very sharp edge after I finished it. I've sent it off to other people. I sent one to Nero, one to Michael Christie. I'm not sure if they've had much luck either. I would suggest a diamond emulsion on a strop, just from time to time, keeping it. It might even just be a placebo effect. Maybe it's simply not getting dull, but that's what I've been doing with this one. And yeah, it's just utterly sharp still. So, very cool. Handle-wise, super simple. This is not a handle that you want to cut 1540 times through twisted cell rope with. It still isn't. It was in the previous to a further extent. This is better. It's an improved handle, largely due to the lack of locking leaves and things like that. Just a pretty symmetrical slip joint handle. It's still super thin. You know, holding thin things and doing repetitive tasks is never going to be as fun as holding something like this Buck 110 and 20 CV steel with a big old square handle. But it's for the office carry or for the light carry that it's aiming for, it's absolutely fine. You're going to get this out, you're going to do a couple of cuts, and you're going to put it back in your pocket. If this is not the knife for you, you knew it as soon as you saw it. This is just kind of talking a bit about how this handle works. Decent forward sort of guard there, which is great. It's so simple, there's not really much more to say on it. You can probably feel this just by looking at it as how this is going to feel. It's passable, it's fine, it's a simple slip joint knife. It's not as good as, say, like, my closest comparison to this knife at the moment is probably this Almar Falcon. This is another kind of very simple little, I would say, formal or office or everyday sort of light use knife. Again, sort of very thin materials, very thin handle, similar kind of depth on the pocket clip, similar weight, footprint in the pocket, all that sort of good stuff. Not as sort of, still doesn't feel as robust and as imminently usable as this, but again, for what they're going for, super light use luxury item, does absolutely fine. So just specs wise, the overall length of things 198 millimeters. The blade length is 80 millimeters long. The cutting edge, I think I said, was 20 degrees per side. Blade is 80 millimeters thick, which I think is a sign. I think is an error on their website. I think it's 0.8 millimeters thick. It is very, very thin. You've got a so they call this a DLC coating, and they call this a hollow grind, like this bevel here. So that's about what I had it picked as. I'm just going straight off the website now, and they call this at 60 grams, so very, very lightweight little blade. The Almar Falcon's about, I think, 51 or something, so it's a little tiny bit heavier than the Falcon, but still super lightweight. You won't notice having this in your pocket, and it really does slip really, really nicely into sort of that back corner seam towards your bum there, of just like, you could have an iPhone 11 Pro Max or a Galaxy Fold or something in your pocket next to it, and you wouldn't have any compromise for real estate at all. Really nice, lightweight little piece. Alright, so in terms of things that I don't love about it, it's polarizing. Like, it's an unusual looking knife. It's not good looking like a traditional folding knife is good looking. Like, so lots of the other slip joints that are perhaps you'd choose to take instead of this are going to be like, you know, Lion Steel Bestmans and Great Eastern Cutleries and things like that. It's kind of like modern and odd looking. It sort of looks a bit like a like something from like Halo or something crossed with, you know, like something that Apple might design. It's a bit unusual. The logo, I've never been the hugest fan of their logo. I love this logo. I think this one's really cool, the SK there. But the Sandrin font there, not the hugest fan of that. The tip, I would have liked a sharper tip, but then, you know what, I can't even comment on how difficult this material must be to work with, so that's that. But everything else is going to be obvious about the knife, and it's just almost part of the design rather than saying it's a flaw. Yeah, it's thin. Yeah, it's got a long straight edge that's not the best for everything. Yeah, it's like a slip joint so it doesn't lock. It's, you know, got all that stuff, and that you're going to have various opinions about those things, but I'm not going to say any of those things are bad by any sense. They're just what they've chosen to do, so there's that. So yeah, I guess in conclusion, if you're someone who likes the idea that you've got this material in your pocket, then this is the best presented this material's ever been for a decent price. Absolutely. Sandrin, I know that they are complete nerds for this sort of stuff. They are people like us. Like I had a couple of conversations with the fellow who runs it, and I got just great amount of. He's so proud of his work. Like I got this enormous amount of material about how he does it, and it's all. I might leave it to Laren over at Knife Still Nerds to go into, because I think he's had the same sort of material, but he's proud of his work, and this is like his baby. This is a combination of, I think, a university thesis and a whole bunch of like really kind of experimental thoughts. So I just love the idea of it. It's kind of like a bit like, you know, the traditional knife guy in me like wants steel to sort of. I'd love for there to be a steel to be able to match this stuff, but then you know what? Steel does other things better than this stuff. So if this stuff wants to have the longest lasting edge by kind of default, then maybe just let it have it. That being said, I got no doubt that if I got into Sean from over at Pap's Big Brown Bear, got him to make me a Rex 121 blade at 71 Rockwell and put it at, you know 0.5 thousandth behind the edge or something crazy like that, I'm sure that would probably at least catch up to this and probably even overtake it. But for something you can just buy from the website, it's a pretty good representation of, you know, peak blade performance in a certain sense at any rate. Alright guys, so that's the Sandrin TCK, a bit of a look at that one, the TCK 2.0. Yeah, give us some thought if this is something that you like the idea of. Thanks for watching. Seeing as this is the Knife Lab, we're going to do some testing of some sort. I don't have the shoulder to do another full edge retention test, but commonly cited thing is, oh, it must be so brittle. So we're going to do some edge stability testing. We're going to go up through a series of things and see, what it takes to stop this knife from slicing a held sheet of paper. It may just be some hard wood, or it may be, you know, something a bit more robust. So let's just go up through an incremental chart of things and see where this stops. All right, so the first material we're going to cut is this vinyl piping. Just see what happens. God, that thin blade just wrecks it. It's amazing. Cool. I doubt that would have done anything meaningful to the edge, but we'll just double check. No worries at all. Okay, so let's move up. Let's do it against some wood, huh? So I'll do some shaving and then I'll do some chonking. Chonking, is that the technical term? Some chonking against the wood. This is my nasty Australian hardwood that I've broken knives battening before with. Very kind of glassy and hard. And I'm seriously, I have no idea. This could stop the test. I've got no idea. I don't expect to get through all the materials I've brought, so we will see. Tell you what, this isn't a bushcrafting knife. Righto. So see how that's gone. Okay. Again, no issues at all. Not even a slowdown. Right, so this stuff here, this is whippersnipper cord. It's like a 3-stranded, plasticky, pretty nasty stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mallet it through it. Okay, bonk. A couple more times. A few different places on the blade, perhaps. Go. Piece again. Just got to go right to the edge because of that parrot's beak there. So that stuff I've known to my softer steel knives, when you cut it and sometimes you rake the whole edge across it and don't just kind of push through. I've known that's been known to dull knives for me before. Not in this case. Right, we're going to move on to this plastic peg. So it's a clothes peg, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to hammer the knife through it. Just get it resting. go. Smashed up that peg good. Yeah, smashed it good. It's fun to smash things. Okay, so that's fine. I'll just do the other half of the peg. Enjoy looking at my shoulder for a second there. Righto, so same peg again, just to, you know, why not? A bit of why not, you know. Cool. Nothing, not a thing. Alright, so we're going to move on to this electrical cabling here. It's got a 3-strand copper insulated through it, so it's just like your standard house power cabling sort of stuff. Going to hammer it through this a couple of times. Now this is definitely rolled when I do those really steep edges, like 11-degree edges and stuff, and then cut this. This is rolled those before, so. Cool. So that's going through like a fair bit of like other metal. I mean, I know it's just copper, but cool. Using the whole edge, absolutely no degradation at all. Like, it feels like it has done nothing. So, right. Let's find something else. Okay, so this is a springy hairpin, one of those. So we're going to see what it does. So I'll just bend it open. I'm going to smash it through that and see what happens. Surely this will roll it. Surely. It's not quite too flat almost. Right, we will try it this way. Awkward. Righto, we'll get there. Separated? Not yet. There we go. So that broke in half. Cool. Jeez, left a fair old gouge into the table there as well. Alright, so that has definitely damaged the edge. Yep. So that's what it took. So I got through all those other things, and now we have like a fair little notch taken out where that went. Yep, easily done. So that's the limit, and I would say that is not a. That's not a like casual, you know, it did this fine, it did, especially the wiring fine. I would say, yeah, possibly more robust than, say, a steel, but you know what, let's even try that. So let's get, say, here we go, this 20 CV buck. I think it's the slicing paper. No, not really. Let's get my para, let's get some 110V and see how that does against the same hair clip. So 110V, slicing paper, see how that looks. Give this a bit of a cut up. Okay, so let's cut that in half just now. And yeah, even that's taken a, yeah. So I'll show you up close. Alrighty, so you see there, that's where the 110V failed. There is like a little notch out of the blade, and then a bit of a bigger notch out of the Sandrin there. That's where it failed, cutting that hair clip. So just a little piece of steel hair clip. So there you go. So not too remarkably different from just what a relatively well accepted pocket knife steel will do. And it still went through, you know, wood and vinyl and the whipper, like this, you know, this pretty nasty whipper snipper cord, and also the power cord as well, which is this stuff here. So I don't know, I would say that brittleness, yeah, it's probably not as robust as like 3V, of course it's not, but nothing too exceptionally bad for what you're going to come across in your standard pocket knife use. Now I can have a great old time trying to resharpen it, and I'll let you know how that goes in another probably 6 months once I figure it out. Alright, so thank you to Sandrin for sending me this along. If I'd bought one myself, I probably would not have been able to suitably test it because I would have been scared of breaking my €260 knife. So tip of the hat to Sandrin, but that's good to know, because people sort of often infer in all the comments about it that it's going to be super brittle, and I would say that that probably shows it's not super brittle. It's, you know, just going to behave like any thin piece of probably metal will if you try and push it through another piece of metal, but through everything previous to that, pretty cool. So Sandrin TCK, if you like it, you already like it. If you don't, you already don't. But that's a bit more of a closer look at it and how it performs. So thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.